Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new friend Kemny. We're here to break down Amaanian and everything in between. And welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks again for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. I know last week, a few weeks ago, we tried to get me on the show, but I was sick. So thanks again for having me on here. I'm super excited to be here.
You're all good. You're all good. I'm recently up on the mend myself, recovering from a stomach flu. I think it's just in the air, right? It's like this time of the year.
I think like everybody I know has got sick. Like literally everybody I know. So yeah, it's just in the air.
So before we really start to dive into anything too deep, I always like to begin the show with a nice introduction to who you are and how you got into creating comics.
Okay. I'm Kem. I go back and talk to you on most socials, Facebook, Instagram. I've been just doing freelance art for like 3 years, a long time, but I've always I've always pushed my art where like it always has to tell like a story. It always has to have like a vision. And I was like, why don't I just like make comics? I was like because that's what I was trying to do with my art essentially anyway. I was like, why don't I just like go ahead and do that? And and I just decided like I'm just gonna make comics, and I've been waist deep in it ever since.
So what was like some of your early steps into creating your very first one? Like, was this your first book, or were there anything like beforehand?
Actually, this would be my second book. My first book is called God Guard. It's about these like people who are celestial stars, but they're like have like powers of gods. The reason I didn't start with that one is because it was too big. It was like too massive. There were too many characters. It was too big, and I chose Amaanian because it has less characters. The story isn't as long, and I was like, you know what? For my first story, this is manageable, I think.
So did you put that other one like on a back burner? Are you intending to go back to it?
I'm intending to go back to it. That's the God Guard story is one of my biggest stories. Like I've put so much work into it, but I know it's gonna be a lot of work. So I'm gonna go back to it. Probably won't go back to that God Guard story probably until like a year or two. And the crazy part about that is too, I have all the characters already written out, already drawn out. I have all the stuff I need to work on it. Mm-hmm. Just haven't done it yet.
It sounds like you learned like one of the biggest rules when first starting this is not biting off too much in the beginning.
Yes. Because it was funny too, because like as I was about to start on God Guard, and I'm like trying to draw the panels, and I'm like, man, like this seems like a lot. Like for my first story, it seems like a lot. And I was like, you know what? Let me put this on the back burner for a while, and let me work on something more manageable, more bite-sized. And then I'll get more experience that way too, because it's my first story. And then I'll come back to it. So I want to do 2 or 3 stories before I go back to go back to God Guard, because it's one of my bigger stories.
So are you the artist and the writer for that as well?
Yeah.
My man, you put in a lot of work. With this book, you are the writer and artist as well. How did that end up happening for you? I know we were talking a little bit backstage, but can you give us a little bit more, on like just the early beginnings of this?
So on the early beginning of this was when I told people I wanted to do stories, they're like, man, that's a lot. That's a big change from like what I was normally doing. But I feel like in the beginning when I was looking for writers, a lot of people thought that like I was biting off more than I could chew, essentially, And because of that, I ended up writing like my stories myself. Ended up doing like the most of the creating myself. I have collaborated with other people on my stories to like bounce ideas off of, but most of the stories is just me. But I just decided even if I want to do this on my own, even if and ever since I started, I've had a lot of more writers ask me to be on it because my first part of my story has really done really well. But at this point, I really want to finish this story myself before I take on any other writers.
So what does it look like for you when you start kind of nailing out that creative process? Like, does, the art come first, or does the script, how does that exactly work for you?
So the Amaanian started off with a sketch. And when I finished like the sketch, I was like, you know what? I feel like this could be something more. So I started off with the writing heavy. I went heavy into the writing. Like what I mean heavy, I mean like I already have like the first like 3 volumes already written out. You know.
Wow.
Yeah, like heavy into the writing. And for me, that is good for me because like when I have like a good like writing foundation, that helped me build my story and helped me like stay on track too. It's helped me stay on track to like my story. But for me, I go heavy on writing first before I do any art.
And I mean, speaking of that, you know, you have the opportunity to read issue 1 and issue 2 on Global Comics for free, but I had the chance to kind of get like a digital like deluxe like behind the scenes look at some stuff, and holy crap, man, you have your own language made up for this.
Yeah, I created my own Amaanian text, and we talked about that before too. The Amaanian text is I wanted my comic to be more like immersive. You know, it's like dark fantasy, so I wanted it to be more. I wanted to draw people into where like you're in my universe now, you know. So like, I created the Amaanian text. So like, whenever in my story, like all the English, all the words, the speech is English, but whenever you're reading like a map in the story, or you see a picture of a map, or you see a letter or a scroll, it's always going to be in that Amaanian text because I really want my readers to get to a point where they can read it without even looking up what the code is. You know.
So, how hard was it to do that? It seems like it'd be pretty, you know, complicated.
It was. It was. I'm not gonna lie. It took me probably, I think, 3 tries to get it right. Because I tried the first time, and some of the letters people just couldn't get. And then my wife was like, "This is a lot better the second time." But some of the letters just look too similar to like English words, so I had to change it up again. But it really didn't take me that much time. It took me 3 iterations, but by the second iteration, I had it pretty much down packed. The third iteration, I changed it was only like literally like 3 letters, 3 words.
No, when I was reading this and I seen that and I opened up, I was like, man, like it's like anytime you open up that first page and it's like there's a map or some sort of like language, like you know it, you're in for a trip. Like this world is going to be huge.
Exactly.
Real quick, we have Insamad32 over on Twitch stopping to say very interesting. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us. So now that we've kind of like really talked about like what went into this, give us a little bit about what this story is about.
So the story is about the Amaanian clan. It's a clan of they started out as just like farmers who ended up becoming warriors, and when they tried to go back to like their peaceful farming ways, they were cursed by demons. And the Amaanians, because like even though they're farmers and they were warriors, they're not the kind of people who like when they're cursed they back down. They don't back down from anything, you know. So like when they're cursed, they essentially turn the curse into their own power. The Amaanian clan is about this clan who uses like dark magic, and in a world where like essentially everybody in the universe can use dark magic, but only about 7% of magic. Like most humans can only use about 7% of dark magic. That's not a lot. It's like you know, to do household chores and stuff like that. Whereas the Amaanians can use all 100%. But because of that, they're cursed when they use dark magic to a high amount. The blight curse grows on their body, and eventually they die or they get turned into something worse than a demon. And that's what the story is about. The story is about this clan of demon hunters who are literally like risking life and limb and sacrificing themselves to eradicate demons. And more specifically about Akana, who is essentially the harbinger who brought upon this curse to the Amaanians, and why she did it, and how she's going to use the curse as her strength to essentially like get revenge on the demons who took something from her.
And she's the one that's filled with rage, right?
Yeah, she's the one that harbors like all the. Yeah, she's terrifying.
I remember when I came across the one page, it kind of gave me like some Kratos, like God of War vibes. Like I just beat Ragnarok last night, and I remember seeing this.
Nice.
This is. I feel like this it kind of feels like Kratos a little.
That's dope. I'm not gonna play Ragnarok right now. But that's dope. That's dope. But yeah, it's like that's totally what I'm going for. Like she's like definitely like she's like controlled anger, controlled rage, but that rage does go out of control, and when that happens, very bad things happen. You know, but she's like just controlled rage. And the thing about Akane too that makes her very unique is like, unlike most people, she wasn't a warrior. She was just a mother, you know, that turned into a warrior due to circumstances. But and I feel like because she was a mother that turned into a warrior, I think that's where she gets most of her power from, because before she was a bystander, and now she chose not to be. Yeah.
No, I gotcha. So I think right now, let's go ahead. It'd be a perfect segue for us to actually pull up issue 1 over on Global Comics and kind of go through it together. So, Hello Darkness, my old friend. I love that. Are these going to be like Easter egg chapter titles, or was that just?
Yeah, they are. I really like that kind of stuff. That's my jam.
I like that. Yeah. That is awesome.
Thanks.
All right, hold on one second. Let me go ahead and zoom out. So, who are we seeing on the cover right here?
So on the cover, you actually see, and this is like an Easter egg as well too. You don't even notice, but on the cover you see all three main characters. You see Akane below with that's her, Akane with the mask on. Whenever hunters go hunting, they always wear a mask to cover their face. That means they're on duty and they're hunting. Below is Akane. Above Akane is Kuma. He's like a 7'2" giant of a man. He's like brute strength. And faintly behind Kuma, you can see the eyes of the demon Jugo.
And he's a badass dude too, right?
Yeah,
Kuma's
a bad man. He's a bad dude. He's just like, and you've got to see behind the and you see how he's like wrecking people.
And I love that part too, where they like he wants to get confronted, and then he stands up. They're like, "Oh, he's a mountain of a man." Like we underestimated this.
I'm like, oh crap, yeah.
So right here, I really loved how you have your own language for it.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little bit about what the maps? I didn't take time to translate this part, but I did translate that one part, and it was awesome.
So this part here is origin, and it talks about like, so in Amaanian, in Aya, there are 2 moons and no suns. There's no sun. There's no light. So this talks about the scar, the black scar, is what it's talking about. And the black scar says there was no warning. All of a sudden, the sky turned dark, and demons essentially fell upon them and came to divide them. So this picture right here, on the left page, on the right page, is the moon that's cracked, and darkness is coming out of the moon.
Ooh. And I love how you balance like the language you made up, with English as well. Yeah,
because I wanted it to be something that like you can go back to if at first it felt overwhelming. You can go back to it if you want to. Yeah. So here is like just the demons descending upon them, and then Akane, of course, just filled with rage. And yeah, talk about Akane filled with rage, and then Hello Darkness, my old friend is the title for part 1.
And then I really like this beginning. Is there any special symbolism behind this? It almost feels like like the Book of Genesis, like the beginning,
Yes, it is. Like, man, you're actually like you have a lot of insight. I can tell you have a lot of insight because it is kind of like the beginning, but there is some significant meaning behind this whole place, which you're gonna find out later what it means. But like this place is not just something that just you see just once. Later you find out that like it has a lot of power behind this place. I just love how like how much serenity it feels like is like in this moment right now, and then like how violently that changes. Yeah, I know. That's really what I wanted, because this place here, I wanted this to be not like A at all, because A is where they live. But I don't want this to be like, because even her, she's like, this does not seem normal. She's
Mm-hmm.
used to darkness. She's used to violence. She's used to like uncomfortableness. So her here, she's like, this just doesn't seem right, you know.
And then like right here, I just loved how from one moment, you know, she's right there changing, and then it just crashes and cracks, and it just, there's a whole different like, you know, it almost gets negative right here. What was like some of your inspiration behind this?
So I was thinking about how I wanted to do like, so this negative world, the negative place. This is when Akana goes inside of her mind, inside of her head, and I was thinking about how I wanted to do like that negative place, because it's also a dark place, because as you know, in the next page you get to see what's in there in the darkness, and it's not like it is inside of her head, but she shares this dark space with something else, which is why it's dark for a reason. And I was like, how else would I create like a negative space? And I was like, why don't I just like literally make it negative, make it like.
And man, I love like the texture of the hair, kind of like with the negative, and just having like just the outline of it. Like it is so gorgeous.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really wanted to go for that, and especially for texture wise, because I've heard from a lot of people that like a lot of comic book characters, especially black comic book characters, they don't have black hair, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to make a black character with black hair, you know.
Mm-hmm. And then right here, this was just like such a crazy, like going from like the nice calming like butterflies floating to this was just like such a 180. I loved it.
I know, yeah. Like this is one of our favorite pages, because this is when people are like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" Because like it's like a duality, because Akana is rage, but she's also like a warrior who has she knows when to like let go and when to like hold on to rage, which is so here. And Akana doesn't fear anything. Akana isn't scared of anything. So when she goes down there and she sees Jugo resting, she's like, you know, what do you mean we've been down here for like 100 years? The fuck you do?
And I still love like how it's still in the negative, but then you see these colors. Like, is there any symbolism behind the color green?
There is actually. Green is supposed to mean, green is the symbol of, green is the color of the underworld, and also the color of wrath. Green is the color, like I know red, you normally think of red when you see wrath, but Jugo is a demon of darkness and a demon of wrath, and he associates wrath with that color, that green color.
Oh, that is awesome. So what is happening right here? What are we seeing happening?
So here, like, scroll up a little bit, and you see, like, do you see like the wave going into her? And then you can also see the demonic face of the wave right here, right by the letters. So that's Jugo. So like she thinks Jugo is about to attack her, because Akana gives Jugo demands. She doesn't ask him questions. She doesn't say, "Hey, let's do this, please." He just tells her, "This is what the fuck is going to happen." And this, you know, and Jugo hates this. It's not like but he hates it. But at the same time, she's right. So he attacks her, but really, he's really submitting to her and giving her his power.
And then right here was such a powerful moment too, seeing her just like embraced. So is this kind of just like his human form then, like, or
yeah. This is you'll learn later, but this is the form because Jugo is essentially he's darkness. He's the embodiment of darkness, and this is the form that Akana chose for him. His normal form is the serpent, but this is the form Akana chooses when she manifests him. He's like a humanoid.
And then we have Oblivia over on Twitch hyping up the chat as well. And then I just love the emphasis of green, like how we see that like radiant out into the real world too. What is this like crystal that she is locked up in?
Nice. So like the crystal is, you learn about the crystal in part 2.
Okay.
So I'm glad you actually asked about that. But the crystal is this it's kind of like outer shell. When you read the origin, you find out that like she caused the cataclysm and disappeared. When she disappeared, that's what happened. She disappeared into this crystal. And they found this crystal, and essentially like they've been holding on to it for like years until eventually Akane wakes up and breaks out of it, because there's a prophecy behind Akane that she would always come back and she would help them, you know, with the power of darkness, rid the world of demons. So they found this crystal and they've been holding on to it until Akane comes back. But it's been a long time. It's been 100 years since she came back. So a lot of people just like kind of like, they're like, man, she's never come back. Like, why would just take this crystal and just shove it in the corner somewhere? So a lot of people just gave up hope that she would ever come back. But finally, after 100 years, she reemerges.
I really love the use of the chains too to kind of break apart the panels.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. The chains are hard to draw. Chains are really hard to draw. But like I wanted to like, I'm an artist at heart. In my heart, I'm really an artist. So like I really wanted to like make this comic book like a visual spectacle. You know.
And then that's it. That's all you guys get. Right here is a link to check it out on Global Comics. You have chapter 1 and chapter 2. So we went through chapter 1. Can you give us a little bit about what to expect in chapter 2?
So I wanted to do it in a different way in how I introduce the characters. So chapter 1 is Akana. Chapter 2, I introduce you to Kuma. And well, you've met Kuma. He's just like Kuma is the holder of the crystal. He's the one who's been holding the crystal. So you find out that he had been holding on to Akana's crystal for a while since his mentor passed away. And part 2, you find out about Kuma. You get to see combat for the first time. You get to see magic for the first time. Part 2 is like it's just a ramp up from part 1. Kuma. At the end of part 2, meets Akane, and you get to find out how they cohabitate together, and that takes you to like the end of volume 3, which takes you to end of volume 1 with part 3.
No, that is awesome, man. You sound like you have a full plate ahead of you with this series.
Oh, I do, yeah. I'm really excited though. Like it's a really it's a really cool series. Like I mixed in like all of my favorite genres. Like one of my favorite shows, favorite animes is Vinland Saga, and I mixed that in there with their Demon Slayers with the magic and combat. I mixed that in there. I just mixed in like my favorite animes and my favorite genres and made something new. So I'm really excited to see what comes of it, and I'm really excited to show you all guys what else I have next too.
So speaking of that, like, what are you doing outside of this series? Like, is there anything else that you're working on in 2023? Actually,
yeah. In 2023, I'm actually working on a lot more stuff. I'm working on releasing 2 more series from the archives, and I call it archives because like that's where I keep all my stories. But I'm working on releasing 2 more stories. Renegade, which is a story about 5 outlaws who essentially defy the government and steal some government property, and they're essentially on the run from the government until they decide, hey, we have like this high-powered equipment. Why don't we just say fuck the government and attack them? You know. And that's called Renegades. And I have another story called The Host of the Dragon. It's a story about it's like a shonen story about essentially like mystical police. It's like a mystical police where there are people who can essentially like are hosts of mystical dragons, and because of that, they operate as like mystical police, and they police mystical creatures. So I'm looking forward to releasing both of those. Thanks.
Oh, that is so awesome. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on here, breaking down this series and everything that went into it. Before we let you go completely, though, I always love ending the podcast on a strong note, and that's asking for a little bit of advice for anyone that might be new and listening. So with that being said, for anyone who is watching and having a hard time getting started, maybe having a hard time finding motivation and just getting going with the art or the writing, what type of advice would you give them to help them just get going with it?
Honestly, I feel like a lot of people say this a lot, but just do it. Honestly, because for me personally, if I had never started my series and I kept waiting for people to help me or people to like come to my aid, I would have never even started. So if it's something you want to do, something that's in your heart, like just start. just start writing, start drawing, just start doing something towards that goal. Just do it.
No, that is awesome. Thank you so much for awesome advice as well. Everyone watching, we have been sitting down with Compassion. What social medias would you like to shout out before we end completely?
Oh, for sure. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. I go by Compassion on everything. So I'm easy to locate.
And with that being said, guys, it is time for us to end. This might be the last podcast of the year. It is a nice rainy Saturday. So with that being said, if it is, I hope you guys all have a fantastic 2022. But if not, we'll see you again later on tonight. I hope you all have a fantastic Saturday evening.
Yeah.
But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.